All right, folks, welcome back. Welcome to Thirsty Thursday number 40. And we're very pleased to have Lieutenant Bassel Ibrahim with us from Orlando Fire Department, Lieutenant on Engine 1. He's going to talk to us a little bit tonight about his upcoming program at FDIC. He's got the program called One Bad Day, the proactive mindset and RIT operations. So with that, Bassel, give us a little intro and background on yourself, if you would.
Okay. Hey, Chief. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this talk with you guys tonight. Well, my name is Bassel Ibrahim. Work for Orlando Fire. I'm on Tower 1, downtown Orlando on C shift. Been in the fire service for 18 years, and I love the job. I don't even consider it a job. It's my hobby. My coworkers, my friends, they think I'm all weird, but I truly enjoy it. So it's been a really, really good career so far. It's like I started yesterday, and I'm a student of the game. So nonstop learning. I got promoted to lieutenant, which is a company officer in our department on suppression units about a year and a half ago. Went to Engine 1, which I am not a good engine guy. I spent most of my career on truck companies or heavies or squads, even in my old department. And, I did some engine work when I got promoted, and now I'm back on the truck. So I'm in my happy place. So, I'm excited. That's about it, man. Not much besides that.
Excellent, man. Well, thanks again for joining us. And for those of you who've been tuning in previously, Mike's going to join us here momentarily. He got called back into work in Baltimore, and Bobby should be on momentarily as well. So with that, I wanted to talk to you, Bassel, a little bit about your class coming up. I know you do a variety of different things. You and I had spoken a few months back about some of the air management practices and some of the things you're looking at with SCBA. And that all dovetails into the RIT operations that you're doing. So with your class out there, real quick, I'll give you a shameless plug. I believe it's on April 27th at, was it 3 o'clock to 5:15?
It's on Wednesday the 27th from 3:30 to 5:15.
Okay, yeah, all the weird FDIC schedules out there. So,
that's right.
And I don't know if you have a room assignment yet out there, but definitely if you're out there at FDIC this year, please stop by and check it out. And I see our brother Bobby McGee has come on. So, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, how are you guys? Sorry I'm late. I'm running the family around. So good to meet you there, sir.
Likewise, sir. Thank you for having me.
Excited to hear what we're going to talk about tonight. Yep.
All righty.
And for those of you wondering where Ben is tonight, I usually have a smart ass quip about him being at a Dungeons and Dragons convention or Comic-Con or something, but he's actually about an hour north of me right now. Him and his wife are enjoying their belated honeymoon. So good on him. And before we keep going a little further, one of our brothers from Salisbury, Maryland Fire Department, Assistant Chief Rob Frampton, he just graduated from the Executive Fire Officer program today. And he's been on the show. Great guy, great firefighter. So very proud of him, and wish him congratulations. So while we're waiting for Bobby to come back, because I guarantee he's going to go ahead and pour himself an adult beverage. Bassel, talk to us about this RIT class coming up. What do you got going on? Is it lecture? Is it hot? A little combination of both? What do you got?
All right. So the FDIC program that we're presenting, the One Bad Day at FDIC is going to be a lecture. It's a presentation, and obviously, I got the hour and 45-minute session, so it's going to be the very abbreviated version of the normal, 4 to 8 hour workshop that we do. But essentially, my goal of teaching this class is to really change the mindset of RIT operations being viewed as a check the box assignment or a punishment function on the fire ground. So nationally, that's how we see that function. That RIT is just a boring, you show up a third, fourth engine or tower that comes in late. All right, okay, you're going to be RIT. Just go stand by there and do nothing. Well, I just want to change that mindset, and it's always going to be based off of fact and data and trial and error, and everything is based on the clock. Like you and I talked on the pre-show, time is one of the biggest enemies of the fire service. So it's data driven. We're going to talk to really understand how RIT works. You need to dive into the survival aspect. You need to dive into the stress response physiology, because if you understand how your body and how the victim's body are going to react to stress, you'll be able to effect a rescue better. So we're going to talk about a little bit of that in the class. We'll talk about calling out maydays and some of the misconceptions that are there being taught, like lunar and all these things. Switching tack channel versus not switching tack channel, and then we'll dive into the actual RIT rescue itself. From the command aspect all the way down to tactics of area management and packaging. But we're just going to scrape the surface because we don't have time in an hour and a half. We just don't have the time, and it's going to be very interactive. We're going to listen to some audios, watch some videos, and there's going to be some discussions. I'm not going to be behind that podium just sitting there and reading a PowerPoint. I can't do that, and I can't stand presenters that do it that way. So that's the class that's going to be at FDIC. We're also doing a hot portion at FDIC, but that's it's a search class, the primary search making the grab, and I'm teaching the VES portion of that with Grant Schwalbe and those guys. We've been doing that for 3 or 4 years now with them, but it's my first time presenting at FDIC, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, well, congratulations, brother. That's awesome. And it sounds like there's going to be some great nuggets coming out of that class. Bobby and I had the same conversation. It's great to have other people to think very similarly. But you used a very important word earlier when you talked about the mindset of RIT. And I want you to, if you could, break that down. You give us a view through your lens with it. I agree with you about the checkbox thing. Nothing ticks me off more than when it's all focused on that tactical command board or that tactical checklist that we have to go down. And one of the biggest issues I see is that a lot of maydays, a lot of RIT situations occur before the formal RIT team or the fast truck, fast engine, whatever you want to call them, is in place and ready to go. And again, like you said, there's the firefighters will be sitting there in the staging area with RIT wringing the handle off of an axe because they want to go to work. That's right. Their nature. That's how they're wired. But they don't sometimes realize the importance of that assignment. Have they gone around and looked at softening the building? Have they done a 360? Have they determined if this, then that? What are we going to do? Bobby's really big on data points and time training as well. So basically, what is your mindset as that company level officer? If you're either in charge of RIT or you're considering it as that first arriving unit, show us through your lens. Like what are you thinking versus the tactical check sheet? What is your priority list when you get on the scene?
Okay, so first of all, the name of the game, what's going to win it, is pre-planning. Okay, pre-planning, and I don't mean just pre-planning the structure and the building, but I mean pre-planning it with your crews on who's going to do what and when. But really, it's being proactive once you get on scene. If you're assigned RIT and you get on scene, you can do RIT functions without being deployed, if that makes any sense. All right, you need to be proactive, moving with a purpose, surveying that building, softening up that structure. We do split 360s to get multiple eyes on the structure. And now again, it's going to be dependent on your resources. It's going to be dependent on the size of your structure, residential versus commercial versus high rise. I mean, I'm just giving you a bread and butter residential type RIT operation for us. Tactics are local. Okay, your tactics are going to be different than my tactics because you have different type of buildings, you have different type of staffing resources and all of that. But everybody can do RIT in a proactive manner. You can just get out there, get eyes on the building, size up that building, think about how you're going to take that building apart to gain access or to create egress before it even happens. Don't lay a tar pad on the ground with every single tool you have on your rig and wait there with your hook next to command on the front yard. No, that is not right. Now, if you have the staffing to have a secondary RIT crew stage with all these additional equipment, sure. But your primary RIT company needs to soften up that building. I've always said that the main goal of the RIT company is to prevent that mayday from happening. Now, you're not going to be able to do that on all emergencies. Obviously, if there's a sudden change of condition, a collapse, or a medical emergency, we can't prevent that. But what can we do? We can be ready to make access and get in there and get those guys out. Okay. Now, talking about data, look at the data. I mean, I'm not making this up. It's not just my opinion. If you look at the statistics from Project Mayday, the latest numbers came out in March here. Who makes the rescue most of the time? Well, they rescue themselves or an interior company, either their crews or another company operating on the inside, and then the RIT team that's on the outside. So those numbers tell me two things. One, everybody on the fire ground needs to have a level of survival and RIT operation training, because not just the RIT team is going to affect the rescue. And two, the closer you are to the victim, the higher chance of survival they're going to have. So why just stage far away by command or wherever, waiting for activation with all these tools that you may not even need? You don't need a Stokes basket with a jackhammer and all these crazy things. If you go into a single-story residential wood frame shotgun shack in the ghetto, you don't need that. Pick the appropriate tools for the structure that you're going to go into, and then go to work. Okay. I'm doing, and I know I'm going to, you got me going to another topic here that I'll talk to you in private about, but I'm doing a research study on weight, how much weight we're carrying as firemen, like our air packs, our air bottle, all the tools and everything, right? We always want to do, we need better gear that protect us from more heat, and then bigger air packs that have more air, and let's carry all these tools, and our RIT pack weighs 42 pounds, and all this crap. No, man. Well, I'm not going to say no yet because I'm not done with the study or the research, but I'm comparing weight and performance, and I'm putting it on the clock. So we can talk about that, later, like with the data. I started doing it about a month and a half ago, and so far it's pretty interesting. So far it's looking like even using a 30-minute bottle, a 30-minute bottle with lighter gear, I'm able to complete more rounds of a functional circuit than I am with a heavy 45-minute bottle with all this equipment and stuff on me and a heavier gear. So we'll talk about that at a different time. But as far as RIT goes, my mindset is just be proactive and just be ready to get deployed at any time. Okay. Create egress. Now, don't just open up and force doors, but unlock them. Okay. Don't disturb that fire behavior. If there's windows, throw ladders to them. If, just be mobile and stage yourself in the area of concern. Don't just do a 360 and go back, sit on the front side. No, go around and be mobile, listen up to the radio and pay attention, just be there for the guys. There is this other aspect of it. And there's a lot of people that I really, really respect that disagree with me on this. And they like the standby kind of RIT because they say, well, we want to keep our guys fresh. And, when they get deployed, I want them fresh and ready to go. I understand that, but this is why we cannot lower the standard to be a firefighter. This job is physically demanding and it's hard. It's hard. Okay. So to me, doing these proactive functions are not something that should get you tired. I call it being primed. Now you're ready to go to work. It's like I'm warmed up. The key is, as a company officer, I need to make sure that my guys don't overcommit. We can't be VSing and looking for people inside and, helping the engine crew doing this. on the inside. No, we have to be able to be disciplined. Can you guys hear me? Did I freeze?
No, it's great. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think, part of the challenge with a RIT, which I think we'd all agree is some advanced skills, is that we have a fire service with a lot of guys and girls that don't give that full commitment. And so we really need the full commitment for how to stretch a hand line, how to maintain orientation inside the building, how to self-rescue. What are you going to do if you got to go out a third floor window and there's not a ladder there? Those types of things. And I think that RIT in general is what we'd really like to have on that RIT is the guys and girls that they buy into the job, and kind of grow from there. Up in Delaware, when they were beginning to do the RIT programs up here, I went and tested with them, and they went through this thing, and they wanted you to do a whole bunch of remember the ant farm kind of stuff, Trevor, the things that we used to do, a bunch of skills all together, hoisting a hose up and, carrying a chainsaw across the rafter, that kind of stuff, to see where we were physically. And they actually wanted to develop a physical standard for RIT, and they wanted to certify people in RIT in the state. And then they wanted to have this list of people, like if your assignment was going to be RIT, which is our third due company here in Delaware, if your job was to be RIT, then you need to have X amount of people that were certified in RIT. And the program was like a better spin on how to maintain orientation inside of a building. There's a better spin on how to pull firefighters out. And there's a better spin on, there's no doubt about those are all good. And I remember I argued with him. I thought, well, why would I take people that were best at maintaining orientation inside of a building and camp them in the front yard? And so I had a fundamental difference with the general RIT concept was a lot of what I think the most successful Mayday is the one that doesn't occur.
That's right.
And I think it's guys are trying to search the second floor from the truck, and the hose lines of spaghetti in the front yard, bad things happen, and then we have a Mayday, and we go, we had a Mayday, and how do we handle the Mayday? Well, you didn't handle the hose line. And those little things mean such a big deal in the fire service. And I will say, there's no doubt about it. If you don't have a particular skill set to get someone out of a 4-foot hole or an 8-foot hole or out a window or onto a ladder, it is not going to magically appear in your time of need. It's just not going to happen. And I think we all watch movies and we see stewardesses step up in the time of flight and they kill all the terrorists and all that, which is just not, you talked about it earlier, it's not how the brain works. The brain resorts to pulling back into your level of training. What you say, you have a saying for that, Trevor, I forget, it's you fall back to your level of training, I think is what you say all the time.
Yeah, you don't rise to the moment, you fall back to your level of training.
Right. And everybody, if we're all honest with each other, we all know when the field of vision narrows and you're staring at a pump panel you've seen 100 times, and all of a sudden you can't find the valve you got to pull, or everyone's had those experiences. We just don't admit it because we're firefighters. But it's really, really good stuff. So talk to us about how you attack RIT with the crews inside of the building. Are you going to talk about that out there too a little bit?
So it's all going to depend on obviously the emergency, what type of RIT emergency it is, whether it's a medical, an entrapment, a collapse, a flashover, whatever the case is. But what we try to do is we try to keep it simple, really simple. Most of the time wins it. It's not because we know all these techniques and we have ropes and mechanical advantage and all these cool tools that we have to use them, right? So I tell my guys, and when we teach the classes, that if the RIT company goes in to find me and they locate me like 15 feet into the structure with a relatively clear egress path, and what are they going to do? Nothing. Grab me and drag me out. Like literally grab me with whatever you can and drag me out. You can figure out the problem on the outside, right? But besides that, you have to, we talk about sizing up your structure. Building construction is super important. Accessing the building You don't necessarily have to access the structure the same way everybody else went in. How to locate your down firefighter, and then troubleshooting. This is where you're going to figure out what the problem is. And the troubleshooting process, we can go in detail about it, but it really takes about a minute to do. So you're talking to them, first of all. When you get to the victim, the first thing you're going to do, if their pass device is going off, you're going to turn that thing off. That's the first thing you're going to do before checking for air or anything. Turn that pass device off, because that subconsciously, without even you knowing, it increases your heart rate, it increases the stress level. Turn that thing off. And also it increases communication. You're able to communicate with the victim, with your crew, and with command on the radio a lot better. So once you're done with that, talk to the victim. They're a human. I've seen it countless times where, and by the way, in our classes, we only use live victims. We never use mannequins, because that creates training scars, and I can't stand that. I know NFPA in 1403 puts regulations on us and ties our hand with live fire and all these things, but I truly believe that training with mannequin without having the skill set almost perfected, quote unquote, is a disservice and it builds a false sense of security. Okay, because you're dragging the victims by their head, you're stepping on their chest, you're pulling them the wrong way. That mannequin is not going to talk back to you. But if you use yourself or your buddies as the victim, they will tell you, hey man, like you're choking me right now, or you're about to pop my arm out, or your mask seal isn't even on me. I'm leaking air everywhere. You cannot quantify all those things on a mannequin, because it won't talk back to you. It won't let you know. So to get back to the RIT assessment, the troubleshooting, talk to them, right? If the victim is able to talk, they're going to talk back to you, okay? But assess their mental status, assess their mentation, because we've had documented line of duty deaths where they were altered and gave the wrong information, and next thing you know, they go about their business, or they located the wrong down fireman, So get their mentation, figure out who they are, their name, their assignment, and confirm that with command. If they're not able to talk, if they're unconscious, well, still try to get their name. Everybody's nowadays got their name on their jackets or their identifier on their shield or whatever the case may be. Try to figure out who that person is and relay that to command so we can have an accountability box, right? So now, how many victims do we have? And then, are they conscious? If they're conscious, we talk to them. If they're not conscious, we're going to assess for breathing. Are they breathing? And then after that, we go about checking how much air they have left in their bottle. Is their face piece intact, regulator intact? Checking for any entrapment or any entanglement. And then we go to work. We figure out if there's an airway problem we got to take care of, then, figure out if it's a high pressure problem or low pressure problem, address it. We need to prioritize the rescue task, if that makes any sense. So if there is an airway problem and an entrapment problem, we need to fix the airway first, because theoretically, as long as that person has air, then we have longer to mitigate the extraction. And again, it's very difficult to say always and never when it comes to that, because we don't know the type of structure. We still have to think about the fire, the actual fire that's going on. Is that getting better? Is that getting worse? But I'm just talking in general. And essentially, after that, we have assignments. So we operate with a RIT crew of 4. So we're lucky to have the manpower for it. But the assignments would be your company officer, which is obviously the overall in charge of the rescue and the liaison with command, an airway firefighter, a package firefighter, and then an egress firefighter to locate maybe a secondary or closest way to get out. And then after that, we all work together and get the job done. But if you don't train if you don't train with your crews and add some stress into your training, when it's time for you to perform, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not. And it doesn't matter how much you do it, how much you train, it's not going to replicate on the fireground. I promise you.
And Bass, I want to ask you and Bobby to chime in on this as well. Two things. You talk a lot about training in this, which I think is vitally important, and it's not just what we train on, but how we train. And one of the disconnects I've seen from a lot of training officers, training institutions, statewide academies, whomever, is we don't explain the why behind things to what we're doing. Same thing if we have a down firefighter 15 feet inside the building, and as instructors we'll say, you have to transfill the bottle, you have to replace the mask. And I'm the same way as you, unless we're constrained by standard. I use myself as a victim quite a bit. And I've had some people do a mask replacement. My ear has gotten more air than my face ever has. And that's tangible. But at the same time, if the goal of the training was to buddy breathe, then we need to explain to them, hey, the goal of the training is to buddy breathe. Let's do this. But if that firefighter is 15 feet inside the door and you've got a clear path, they're not otherwise entangled, pinned, or disabled where we can't get them out. Let's not screw around for 15 minutes trying to transfill a bottle or switch regulators or replace their mask. So, but we yell at them so much on the training ground sometime. As a side note, I want to get your thoughts on how we break that cycle in training to get more realistic training. Quick side note: my crew was disqualified during speed. You remember speed drills, Bobby? When we were same thing. We were told to get air to a down firefighter on the second floor of an apartment building. They had smoked out. It was a competition drill we were doing amongst our department, and we went up, found the down firefighter. I took the hook, took the glass out. We took the firefighter through the mannequin out on the porch roof, and we got disqualified. Oh no, you were supposed to, you said, get air to the down firefighter. There's 21% out there here, relative safety out there. But that was the mindset that you were going to get punished for not. So the why behind it. The other thing I want you guys, the second issue I want you to talk about, going back to that management of the RIT team. Let's say you guys are in charge of the RIT team and you've got your people all ready to go. They're 90% ready. The only thing they're not doing is breathing air. They've softened the building. That they're just ready for something to happen. And then a guy like me comes along and says, hey, I need 2 people to go around back and throw that ladder. Well, that might be great, but you're not getting those 2 people back, because me as a firefighter, unless I got to come back to that RIT, that's the mindset that's been ingrained in us. So what do you do with an officer, an instant commander who starts cherry picking out of your crew, and you had your battle plan ready to go, and now all of a sudden I've taken 2 people off your bench. So if you guys could talk about kind of those 2 issues, that'd be great.
So I'll talk about that one real quick, since that's in my head. I already forgot the first question you asked, but so
we'll go back to it. We're good.
There you go. So we are lucky that we have standard SOPs almost predetermined before we show up to every fire. So if we're assigned RIT, that unless there is something that is critical, like a victim's hanging out that window or whatever the case may be, our incident commanders are not going to divide our RIT crew up to go do other tasks. So, but if there is a victim hanging out, I'm going to get the victim. I'll send 2 of my guys to go out there and get that victim out, because I'm not prioritizing firefighters and RIT operation over the main reason why we're there in the first place. We are there for the citizens and the residents and the visitors. That's the main goal. I'm just trying to augment the success of the operation overall and prevent, injuries and deaths to firemen. But so if it's a life safety issue, they can take my guys to go take care of that problem. Now, if they just need 2 of my guys to go help, the 4th engine company hook up to a plug to supply the 3rd tower truck for defensive operations somewhere else, well, they can get somebody else to do that, because that's not a time-sensitive matter. So in my opinion, if I was that, RIT officer, respectfully, I would tell that chief, is this something that you need like right now? Like, is it time sensitive? Is it critical? If it's not, then my position, I believe in RIT enough that it's more important for me to be ready for a potential rescue than to go do something less critical that we can waste time on. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm explaining it right.
It makes perfect sense, and yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, because of short staffing in a lot of departments, that's not, and Bobby can tell you as well, that's not an unusual occurrence. And it's great to hear that you can say, hey, again, respectfully, but hey, Chief, if you're thinking this, well, if I make this decision, I agree with you, then we'll both be wrong. But hey, that's another story, another time. But
right.
And then going back to the first question is, explaining the why behind what we do, so that when it's time to react, we're reacting appropriately. Because firefighters they'll perform exactly how they're trained. That's the greatest thing about firefighters. Yeah. The worst thing about firefighters is we'll perform exactly how we're trained. We are rats in a maze. So talk about training the rats. How do we out train biology with our firefighters so that they do the right thing at the right time?
So really, I truly believe that just like you, I 100% agree that you have to explain the why. In order for that, you cannot start off the training by running. You have to do training in that crawl, walk, run approach in repetition and repetition and repetition. If you start off the training without setting clear expectations, like you stated earlier, I mean, you gave the answers in your question, really, is you have to give the expectation. What is the goal of this drill? What is the goal of this training? And then give the guys the tools and the time and the parameters to operate before you set them free. Now, there is another really good type of training that you can do, which is, I call it like a challenge, where you just show up and I don't even tell the guys what we're doing. And it's, hey, you're being dispatched over here, go, right? That's a different type of thinking. That you're adding all the stuff that you learn in the crawl and walk, and now you're running with it. But you have to set the parameters early in those basic training sessions in order for them to learn the why. And that's how I think you build that confidence with them. Because if you start off right away, smacking them down and, go, then they're going to shut down. They're not going to be receptive. And next thing you know, they're just going to give up. But that, I also believe that this whole thing, we need to start, and this is another pet peeve of mine, is that leadership. We have this hands-off leaders out there where, I'm a company officer or I'm a chief. I don't do anymore. I tell you what to do. And then all of that. To me, I have to, for me to respect you and trust you and to believe the stuff that you're telling me and teaching me, you have to walk that talk. So I believe in a hands-on leadership approach, not micromanaging, but hands-on. If you're out there teaching or showing them something, don't say it with just your mouth. Get out there and then do it. Now, you may not do it as good or as fast as you used to do it back when you were, a fireman or younger or all of that, but at least you're getting down there and then you're doing the work with the crews. I really think that goes a long ways, at least in my book, and then with the guys at my firehouse. I truly believe it. The other thing is that as far as leadership goes in training, I want to develop my crew to be critical thinking firefighters. Okay, if I just drop dead right now on a call, they should just be able to take over and everything would be just fine. That's my goal. I want to make them better than I am so they can replace me or understand everything that I'm thinking and we're thinking, right? My definition of leadership, and I quoted that before, is empowering your people by giving them knowledge, freedom, and autonomy. That's my definition of of leadership. And we need to do a better job at that as a fire service, leading from the front and developing our people. Because succession planning is huge, and we're missing the mark on that in a lot of different ways, a lot of different ranks. The fire service is it's two things. We're reactive and we're impatient. That's what we are. So we want to put in the time, and we want to see results right now. Well, that's not really how it works. You have to put in the time, and over time, you may not see the results of the fruits of your labor till 2-3 years down the road. It may take a generation to change the mentality, the culture, but that cycle has to start somewhere. And we got to do that. We got to do that.
Absolutely. Bobby, your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more with you. I think that if we're going to talk about it, we need to be able to do it. I know that I think Trevor, you were still working with us back then. We were doing some firefighter safety and survival stuff in Ocean City, and we had a bunch of guys want to be instructors. Well, we run into that thing where some guys want to instruct so they don't have to do. And we thought that might be a problem. So I got overtime authorized for anyone that wanted to be an instructor to come out like the week before. And so if you're going to teach going out a second floor window, you're going to do it 6 times. If you're going to teach any of those techniques. And so what it did was it quickly weaned off those guys. They'd rather just do it once or twice if they had to than do it that way. So I agree with that. I also think I try to break training into 2 things. There's functional skills and there's conditions, and they're 2 different things, but I think you need to learn functional skills without the conditions first. I think you need to learn how to do a belt conversion on SCBA in a room, learn how to do it with your fire gloves on. Then you learn how to do it with a mask and gear on. Then you learn how to do it in zero visibility, and you learn how to do that. And I think that the skills have to get their own merit because then the conditions are, and to answer your questions, Trevor, or what you're talking about. These training buildings that we've been traditionally training in are they're horrible because there's always a 15-foot run to the door. It never makes sense to hook up any kind of rip pack to anybody. The floors are perfectly smooth to drag people. There's no furniture. There's nothing in your way. The doors are wide open. The visibility is great. Everything. Hell, we all know the building. So I think one of the problems is the functional skill of doing a mass conversion or doing something like that. It literally makes no sense in those types of buildings to most firefighters, and the problem is they have to learn that because firefighters also will tend to go to their lowest, the easiest thing, so if snatching you out is the easiest thing, it's the only thing they really focus on. Now all of a sudden you're 30 feet inside. So I'm a big fan of the container box training because it gives you the conditions. So you teach and learn the functions, and then you put them in the conditions where they're actually really hot and your neck's burning and things are going on and you're trying to get people out and they're really in a 4-foot hole or whatever it is. So, I'm a huge fan of the FDTN style training. I think that stuff is really good because it's really, really good on conditions. And if the guys can handle the conditions, it's real easy to see what functional skills they don't have. That's easy to fix. It's not easy to fix if they can't handle the conditions. That's a totally different thing. So I just try to, I in my mind, I try to split it different. And the last thing I'll say, Trevor, is I really think reps are sometimes more important than full gear. I have a lot of instructors that say, man, always wear your gear. That's the way you're going to operate, But I'm like, no. If I can get a guy to throw a ladder, do a high section ladder throw 10 times with his fire gloves and his helmet on, that's much better than doing it once with full gear on. I think you got to get your reps in for those functional things that you do, and then you add the gear because now it's not 3 unusual things happening at the same time. So I've been trying to kind of break it down in my training a little bit more where you take care of the functional stuff first, then you put the fire gloves on, then you take the vision away, and then finally when we put them in conditions, that's where we're going to sync to what we already learned. And as long as we can handle the conditions, which some people don't do well with the conditions, that's a whole other deal. But if they do it well, the conditions, then they just pick up on what they had already learned and stuff. So that's kind of my thoughts about all that. To be honest with you, fixed training buildings are horrible. They're laid out stupid. They don't usually have hallways. The people are used to them. They know what they are. And I'm not a big fan of them because it's great for a firefighter 1 class or very basic class. But it gives you nothing really advanced, I think, at the end.
Bobby, I probably won't do it justice, but one of the things that, Bobby, I know you said it many, many times over the years, is to illustrate your point, was just like the football analogy that after a game Monday, you're watching game film. What went right? What went wrong? What can we do better? What can we do the same? And you're doing so many dry runs, and by the time that next game comes up the following Sunday, you've run that one play you probably run 50 or 60 times, not in full football gear. You might have done a no pads drill, then pads, and so you build up to it. It's that crescendo that gets there. So it's that repetition, and it just happens to be that's the uniform of the day that you're doing it in. And Bassel, one of the things I want to kind of come back to that you had talked about, which I think is vitally important, is a lot of us have SOP-driven operations. That's something that's become very well, pun intended, I guess, standardized in the industry. But I also think, like you had said, it's very important to be able to empower your folks and push that process down to the lowest possible level, where they know that they can make a decision. They're authorized to make a decision. They're authorized to make bad decisions, but they're not authorized to stand there and not make any decision whatsoever. If it's a bad decision, we'll talk about it. We'll see a way to improve it. But they should be able to make a good quality decision based on their training, their background, and something. And we can talk about refining that decision later on. So this is where I want you guys to maybe throw your viewpoints out on this as well. And my department's no different. Ocean City, we had the SOPs, but is the SOPs being your playbook. This is your general playbook as far as how we're going to generally attack this situation. The situation doesn't play by the same book that we do. We're the only ones who adhere to that book. So what are your thoughts about being more mission-driven than SOP-driven, or the SOPs as a support function of the mission, but let your folks know that the mission is the most important, so if your crew leader, your lieutenant, your captain goes down, something happens, that operation continues because someone can step up into that role. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because my district chief and I were having this conversation. SOPs, it's a double-edged sword. They're great because everybody knows, it's, at least for us, it's outlined, it's broken down into 4 tactical, structures. So you have your residential structure, regular size. We're not talking mansions, right? Regular residentials, commercial structure, box store or strip malls, garden apartments or apartment buildings, and then high rises. So it does not talk anything about hybrid buildings, parking garages with residences up top, or townhomes, or all these different hybrid buildings that we have. And we are so specific in our SOPs that we have seat assignments and order of arrival assignments. So our radio traffics, if you ever get a chance to listen to some of our fires, is very minimal. It'll be, the engine company gets on scene, engine 1 arriving on scene, give your scene report, and whatever line they're pulling, they're going in. The second engine will get there. All they will say is engine 2, second engine. And that's it. Everybody knows what that engine company is doing. If you're the officer, you have a specific role. If you're the driver, you have a specific role. If you're sitting on the right jump or the left jump, you have a specific role and a specific tool assignment for that type of structure based on the order or arrival. Now, this is great for your bread and butter, the 4 categories, but what that does is that what happens when we go second alarm and it doesn't outline those SOPs for the second alarm units, or we have the hybrid type building. The chiefs that are commanding that fire, they came up through the ranks and maybe they never had a hybrid fire, a 2-alarm hybrid fire. So in their head, they don't know. Now, if you don't explain the whys early on and understand fire behavior and, building construction and, proper vents and all of that, you're not going to be able to mitigate that situation. It's not going to happen. So I think it's a double-edged sword having SOPs. It's great for the majority of the time. For most of the time, statistically speaking, it's great. But for those oddball type fires you have, if you don't add additional training or education behind the SOPs, then that operation is not going to be successful.
No, I would agree with you completely on that. And just to take it a little bit further, when I said about being mission based, the SOP to me gives you a skeleton, it gives you a structure, and this is going to be that 90 to 95% of the time how we're going to operate. But I know I like to try to go on a priority basis. And same thing when I worked in Ocean City, we had the first engine shall, second engine shall, first engine. We were in a unique situation where we bordered another state, and sometimes we'd be working with a completely different fire department from a different state in the north end of our city that they didn't have our SOP. They knew what our SOPs were, but they had their own subset. That second truck may or may not be able to do things. So pushing more on a priority basis to say, and let's just pick something like a high rise. If the first engine gets there and they blow past a hydrant, they didn't pick up their own water supply, something failed in that, you shall do things A through Z in this particular order. Well, sometimes things get out of order, or now we have rescue and we can't, water supply became secondary, but we still, we have to split our crews, whatever the case is. So going to a priority basis, that when that next due unit came in, and if I was that first officer and I had 5 top priorities at a high rise call, and I've got 1 through 3 done, but now my ass is hanging out because I got all my balls in the air that I'm juggling. Then when that next officer would come up, or the battalion chief, district chief, whomever, and they can come up and I can say, hey, I got 1 through 3 done. They're like, okay, no problem. And they pick up where I left off. So that was just another method. Not saying one's, you have to see what's right for your department, how you operate, what your staffing is, all those different conditions. Yeah. But being able to really, have that priority basis and let your people take care of those priorities as well. And like you said, empower them to make those critical initial instant decisions. And, if they need extra help, that they should never be reluctant or scared to make a decision because it deviates from the rule book. I don't like calling the SOP manual or SOGs the rule book, because I know the rules are meant to be broken, but it's a guideline. It's your general playbook. But look at any sporting event. Does the ball always get thrown to the right receiver or to the right player? And something happens where someone else has to pick up, and the rule book changes. So to me, is being able to be dynamic enough, to make those changes, but also that your people feel that they have not only the capability to do it, but they're not going to get jacked up for doing something that they weren't supposed to do. Oh look, hey Bobby, I was getting ready to send out a silver alert for you, buddy. Okay.
Yeah, my battery died on me. Sorry.
You got to feed that squirrel in that little habit trail that's running your electric up there in Delaware, buddy.
I hear you.
So, and Baze, one of the things
I missed all the good stuff.
You did. We solved all the problems. We're done with the show. We're quitting early on this one. But one of the other things I want to talk about too, with especially kind of going back to the RIT and the SOPs, is having that fireground discipline also, because we all want to do fireman stuff. That's our nature. And I always called it like if I was an instant commander, I always called it like the 2-2-2 rule. If I said, okay, I don't want you to go any further than this, they said, hey, Chief, give me 2 more minutes, and you turn around and they're 2 feet closer to the building, and there's 2 more people in the line than there were before. So let's talk about a little bit when it comes to being assigned to RIT or any function on the fireground. I call it 360-degree leadership. You have to be able to communicate all these different directions. But you talk to us a little bit about fireground discipline, your guys' thoughts and viewpoints on that.
Yeah. So it's like everything. Discipline is difficult. No matter what you apply to personal life or, if you want to eat right, if you want to work out, if you want to, not drink, or whatever the case may be, discipline is difficult. You have to train at it. You have to practice it. And a lot of times it's even harder when you don't have help. And the help in that situation is the company officer, or your engineer, or the senior man on that crew. But it's not just seniority or rank. I tell the guys also that if sometimes I am trying to be too aggressive, or I don't see something, or I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, my crew has carte blanche on literally telling me, "Hey, Lou, I don't think you should be doing that. Hey, like, what are you doing?" Or, "Hey, are you seeing this?" It's giving those guys that freedom, like you talked about. But we practice that discipline. And how do you practice it? In training, at the firehouse. So to relate it to RIT type stuff, we burn a bottle every day at the firehouse, whether it's an actual like workout, like physical workout, or it's a training drill, or it's a functional circuit. We try to burn a bottle of air every single day in our gear, on top of department mandated training and our normal training or whatnot. During that bottle, anybody on the crew is allowed to call a mayday at any time and just drop down. And then from there, us being under stress with elevated heart rate from the workout or the functional training, have to stop, assess the situation, and make a call. Either, well, he's really far away, I need a radio to the other guy to take care of him, or do I just drop everything I'm doing here and run across the bay to the guy that's down and help him out? That's how I instill discipline and stress ahead of time. Now, it's not always successful, but the only way to get to the top, you're going to fail your way to success, I guess. Failing is not a bad thing. And a lot of people think I'm crazy on the type of trainings I do and the guys that we do. But, my definition of training is controlled failure. So essentially, I want to fail in training. I want to try things that may not work. I'd rather try them in a controlled environment, So essentially, training allows you to have errors and mistake without the consequences of real life. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, but doesn't that make you look vulnerable in front of your crew? Aren't you going to be embarrassed?
I have no feelings, zero feelings.
Exactly. They don't make band-aids for feelings. And and to that end, I mean, and Bobby, this as well. A lot of company level officers, especially chief officers, they don't want to engage in it because, like you said earlier, Bassel, look, I'm not once was, but I was as ever was. Thank you. But but to that end, you got to be willing to be vulnerable and fail in front of your people, because then you go, well, that's if they can do it, it's okay for me to do it, because you're going to fail forward. Each and every time you're finding ways how not to do things. I don't look at it as fair unless you're not trying. So, Bobby, from that perspective, what do you think about the fireground discipline with the assignments specific to RIT, and then also as an instructor, as an officer, how do you recommend to fail forward?
I think that you guys have already covered it. I think, it's consistency, willingness to do things. I think willingness to fail is a good thing, because I think a lot of times the fire service has a tendency to have a very, very large book of excuses. As you're having a conversation about the SOGs or SOPs, that takes a commitment from the entire fire department. But there's no SOG. Well, I can't say there's no, at least not where I've been involved in. You'll not find an SOG on like how to do a third belt conversion, or an SOG on how to pull a firefighter from a floor. Usually, you know what I mean? It's more specific, like the first due engine secures a water supply and stretches a line. The first due truck takes sides A and B for ladders and things like that. So SOGs are good because they know what the units are going to do, but they fall very, very short in the functional skills that we're talking about. like RIT and things like that. How to get through a concrete wall, how to get through security bars, how to get through things like that. I think FDNY does a better job than most with those types of training manuals, but SOGs are typically short. I think everything that we talked about tonight is what I think is real. Is that you just have to put the reps in, and I think the one key thing for teaching is people got to be comfortable that you're not putting them in a bad place on purpose. And I think, and what I mean by that is not that you're putting them in a bad situation that you would find on a fire ground, but you're trying to embarrass somebody. And I think we always got to be careful about that, to be respectful that we're all firefighters in this game. Just because I'm a lieutenant doesn't mean that what the firefighters I'm working with are less important than me. And so we're not in recruit school anymore. It's not about that anymore. It's more about mutual respect. Trevor, you always talked about just, you have a guy that works as an electrician part-time. He's the guy you lean on for electrical stuff. You have a guy that works in construction. You lean on him for shoring, things like that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not really well, Travis. I missed part of your guys' conversation, but just be be relevant and be sincere about what you're trying to do with your people, and not trying to throw them under the bus, I guess.
Yeah. The people are the best asset we have. They are. We have to invest in them, and we can only win this game as a team. We can't do it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. It doesn't matter how badass you are or how strong you think you are. You can't. You will be humbled and you will fail. We have to develop our team, lean on each other, and use our resources. And just like you stated, the most junior guy on the crew may be the most valuable team member for that specific type of emergency. So you're going to lean on him. Exactly. At least we should. You're 100% right. Is Trevor back? He's pixelated.
It's that Florida internet. Yeah. And the thing is that definitely will follow you in the fire ground. If they trust you on the training ground, then when the chips are down in a fire, they're going to trust you there too. And I think, and no different than when you're working with your guys, you're going to trust them, to do certain things. And so that trust is built in training, because we're just not enough. No matter how busy you are going to fires, those really sketchy, scary fires are very far and few between for everybody. And so the only way you can work that dynamic with each other is, by training. I mean, it's just the only way you can do the reps for those stressful things, because, failing at training is a stressful thing for people. So it induces a stress. It's a little bit different than, being in a horribly hot hallway, not knowing where you are, but it still is a stress, So I think, I agree with, I think that's the whole thing, is it's a mutual trust that goes on. And that could spread to your battalion chiefs. That could spread to your assistant chiefs. That could spread to your chief. I mean, the more levels of trust we get between each other in both directions, I think the better off we'll handle those very critical times like a Mayday.
Agreed.
You guys have me back yet?
A little bit, Trevor. Still can't understand you.
All right. Hey, Bobby, if you can hear me, we're almost right at the hour. If you want to wrap it up for us, Bobby, since I'm a little bit pixelated, have at
it. Sure. Listen, I'm sorry I missed part of the conversation with my technological issues of an old Irish guy trying to work these technologies, but it's an awesome conversation to have. And I love the fact that people are paying attention to, trying to do better jobs at handling Maydays. And that's great. And RIT is one of those functions, yes, we're going to rescue most people from inside, and we'll talk a lot about that, but also to have those tools at ready. So if you need to make a window and a door, it's always nice to have the tool there. If you need to pull them off the second floor, it's always nice to already have a ladder there. So the proactive approach that you talked about, I think is absolutely critical, so that when the problem does come, you're not grabbing ladders off rigs and they don't have ladders on them because they already threw them somewhere else and that kind of stuff. That things are ready. So we should have you back again because I don't think we scratched the surface of things that we could talk about with you. It's been just phenomenal having you on here, and I'm so glad you're pushing forward in the fire service, and I'm sure you'll have a full room out at FDIC this year, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'll come back anytime. Like you said, we did just scratch the surface, and we did go into many different rabbit holes that would lead into other rabbit holes. But you know what? We have to talk about these things. That's what gets the word out, and that's how we quote unquote fix the problem, is by sharing information, sharing knowledge, and passing it on. So I'm excited for FDIC. I appreciate you guys having me here, and I look forward to talking to you guys again next time.
Cool. And so for everyone listening, thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to us. It's always great to have everybody here and all the comments that come through. This is also going to be on a podcast, and it'll be posted on our websites. And so we look forward to looking. If someone's missed it, they can catch up to this at any time. And with that, we're going to sign out. And thanks everybody for watching.
Have a good night.